I host Spicy Fortuna, a podcast with Willy Rex, Yuja, and Alvaro, all well-known content creators. We are currently the top Spanish language business podcast globally by views. Honestly, our podcast was made to discuss business, companies, and the economy. I'm the only one who talks about politics when I can, but my podcast partners censor me and won't let me discuss it.
Partners, what's happening? What's up with the partners?
Did you say?
Mark, that politics is extremely linked to business and entrepreneurship?
Absolutely. Many successful entrepreneurs have made a living in the public sector. To me, that's not entrepreneurship. It's more like being an external civil servant. If you start a security company and the state gives you all its contracts, that's just outsourcing public service, not a real private company, in my opinion. To what extent is a woman free or not free when she covers herself from head to toe and is completely covered? We haven't discussed it, but does she decide freely or not?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of LA Factoria. Today we have another distinguished Andorran, Mark Urgel, Chief Executive Officer of Grupo Avast. How are you, Mark?
How's it going, Jota? You good? Everyone told me not to come on your podcast, man. I don't know what you do.
But I don't know, man. We try not to hold back.
Are you scared, huh?
I'm often afraid to publish things that I publish myself, I am.
That's a good sign.
It's not a bad thing because honestly, I'd like to be able to say more things and many times I hold back.
And why? What is it that scares you?
Tell me about the consequences. There are consequences. Unfortunately, I'm still not a successful enough entrepreneur to not depend on my YouTube channels, so I'm afraid they'll take them down.
Victor, known as Wall Street Wolverine, frequently has his Instagram account removed by Meta. The level of censorship is crazy, man.
It's insane, man. But above all, the problem with Instagram is that it's like a loudspeaker.
Okay.
It's a platform to reach a large audience and sell. For example, the Madrid Economic Forum, putting myself in the shoes of Victor Andorra Economic Forum, RAX. They mess with you so much it's unbelievable. But if they take away YouTube, which is about 60% of my income, it would be a big loss. Literally, I would have to fire Baru here. So then I wouldn't know how to, well, actually I would know, because whenever you're faced with a tough situation, your survival instinct kicks in and you figure out how to deal with it. But it would be a really big blow. So yeah, that does scare me.
My colleague Yuj, who's been thinking about this for a while, the key is to have direct control over your audience. For example, Telegram or your audience's emails are vital because they let you contact people directly without a censoring intermediary. No, here Telegram is fairly open, but YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook can do it whenever they want.
And you're out.
Right? Or they say, now you have to pay me, and you had to pay YouTube for it.
Has something like that ever happened?
Well, it's a very typical strategy. For example, Google has done it. Google gave you a free email service, for example, and suddenly, just like that, they started monetizing it. They make you depend on their service, then charge you when you have no choice but to pay. Relying on a single third-party platform for your business is a major risk.
Which is not under your control. At any moment, they can do whatever they want. And you're automatically out and...
You can't go to the door and knock on Mr. Meta's door. Mr. Meta, give me my account back. No, you don't have to send a burofax. You have to follow a procedure. They reply late, and meanwhile, no one compensates you.
I was discussing it with Victor, and I don't think it's Meta us. They're allowing a lot of nonsense there.
That's good.
Because I get the algorithm from there.
Yes.
You freak out?
It's Spain?
It's here.
Yes, of course.
It's here. Wouldn't an account last with things like that? For example, candle and showings in Spain.
No, it can't. It's impossible. That's fine. We're experiencing harsh one-sided censorship, even though there are two sides. We can sum it up. The right side is really screwed, or the right side, or maybe not the right, because now right and left is a bit mixed up. It's confusing, but I mean it all. Liberal ideas, for example, anti-immigration ideas, anti-immigration stances are super censored, while all the opposing ideas are not only not censored, but even subsidized. As a content creator, you're either with power or against it. If you're with those in power, it's easy. They offer subsidies, make things simpler, and give you exposure. But if you're against them, you're censored. Zero public contracts. It's nearly impossible to make progress if you're against power.
It's really hard, man. And above all, can we realize this? When you look at the shows they have here on the Podimo microphone pod, you go, damn. Those people get funding and appear on the Forbes list, yet they lack the audience that shows like this one, Red Pill, X-Council, or Worldcast have.
Interestingly, Podimo sponsored us. I don't think we ever actually put Podimo on, if I remember correctly, but they did sponsor the podcast. After seeing the audience, they dropped us saying, "You're not what we're looking for."
Not for the audience to find out. Also, as Chief Executive Officer of Avas Group,
I have the podcast Spicy Fortuna, which is a podcast I do with Willy Rex, Yuge, and Alvaro, who are three very well-known content creators. We are currently the top Spanish language business podcast worldwide by views.
literally, and in fact, when I was on Prime, I was the third most listened to podcast in Spain in total views. I admit this is a bit of a cheat since Worldcast had much higher long-form content numbers than I did, but with shorts, I got 1 million views.
2 million?
I was getting 25 million views monthly.
Of course.
Only Jordi Wild and Spice and Fortuna ranked above me. That's when I met them and thought, damn, I'll check them out.
Let's see. The truth is that our podcast was created to talk about business, to talk about companies, to talk about the economy. I'm the only one who talks a bit about politics when I can, right? But I'm here to say that I'm censored. My partners on the podcast don't let me talk about politics. Dude, look.
Let's see. And who? Let's see. Partners, what's going on? What's going on with the partners?
Are they censoring me? I told them I was coming with you. They warned me, but I said it's fine. They just don't listen.
I have to say a shout out to the people from Spicy because in a way I felt it too.
And that's why I let myself be censored. I get that it's a business and economics podcast, but politics is closely tied to both. Too much.
Man.
Too much. But I understand that our audience is more interested in talking about marketing, talking about business, talking about companies, talking about investments, rather than talking about politics. Sometimes, especially with all Pedro Sanchez's excuses, he really gives me plenty of reasons to discuss politics. They've charged his brother, his wife, Abalos, Zerdan, and now they've said that the brother's caravan was at Moncloa. These are wild things. I don't want to discuss politics, but are they forcing me or shooting Charlie Kerr? We need to discuss politics.
Absolutely, man. I'll let you know on behalf of your partners. I'm dealing with a series of really tough circumstances, dude, for not censoring myself, and trust me, I do. For example, I have 3 people searching for sponsors for me, but I still can't find any because they always back out. That pendulum swing hasn't happened yet in Spain like it already has in the United States. Is there going to be a moment when a brand says, damn, I'm interested because his audience is people who want to be entrepreneurs, succeed, and make something of themselves? And at the end of the day, those are the people who might actually buy from you. But here in Spain, brands are very afraid. Man, so I understand Spice Fortuna when they say, man, I stay on a more balanced side and I don't have to deal with the problems that Jada has to deal with.
Let me tell you something else. Spicy's 4 is just our side business. We all have a main one. Would I dare say that life is sorted out? And in the end, if they sponsor me, great. And if not, I don't care, right? More than censorship or, in quotes, not talking so much about politics doesn't really come from that, but more from the audience. We don't want the audience to come in polarized or to start talking about Pedro Sanchez or more trivial political things. We like to talk about business. And what you were saying about sponsors? Yes, I've experienced that a lot. Besides that, I'm also the co-organizer of the Andorra Economic Forum and the Madrid Economic Forum, together with Victor, and there we've definitely seen that sponsors get scared. I mean, in Andorra, we do have Morabank and we have strong organizations because we don't get into politics that much. At the Madrid Economic Forum, only Bit2Me truly stepped up as the main sponsor. The others did not. You knock on the Santander Bank door and they say we won't sponsor anything involving immigration and politics. God forbid they link me to Depende, right? So, of course, that brand connection, when discussing politics and polarization, I get why Santander's marketing director or the company acts that way. If they say they don't want to be here, I understand and respect that. It's a natural consequence of speaking out. But in the end, if you don't speak clearly, you also end up in no man's land and you don't have a relevant audience either.
You made a reflection earlier that I want to delve into a little more. Did you say, Mark, that politics is extremely tied to business and entrepreneurship?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Develop that thought for me.
He calls it crony capitalism. I think Pablo Iglesias used that term, and I agree. There aren't many big businessmen who have lived and grown by living off the public sector. To me, that's not being a businessman. It's more like being a civil servant, but from the outside. If you start a security company and the state awards you all security contracts, that's outsourcing a public service, not a private company. In my opinion, no. So I think all of this has led to that. The thing is, when you're a businessman, you need to be on good terms with the public sector to get contracts, to be able to make a living from them. And so, in the end, the public sector ends up paying, so to speak, the bill for the private sector. And for me, that's a sign that the public sector and politics are too close to the private sector, and that's dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous. And besides, people don't realize that all left-wing policies, all the policies of raising taxes on large fortunes or on business owners and so on only and exclusively benefit business owners with contacts inside the government and the big multinational companies that pay more taxes. They literally don't care. And the small business owner is the one you really suffocate to the point where they might even have to close down. What you do is monopolize the business and the market for those you want, and you try to destroy the rest.
The thing is, regulation and tax exposure mainly hurt small business owners and the self-employed. Big businessmen are protected with foreign subsidiaries and ways to pay less, but small ones aren't. Every time a new rule, regulation, or law is made, small business owners are the ones who suffer most. So, I find it really funny, especially with a socialist government. Supposedly everything they do benefits the big ones, not the small ones. And for me, what is really important is that the public sector, the government, in the end, is constantly making decisions to empower its own position. So, all the laws that are created improve the government's position in any case, but never that of the citizen. And I don't understand how people don't see it.
Do you know what happens? That people being dependent, a large number of them on the state, when the government, the state, is strengthened, do they feel like they themselves are being strengthened?
So,
it's very complicated to break that mental matrix that a large part of Spanish society has. Until that clientelist network faces difficulties like in Argentina.
If YouTube required you to display a plaque here to promote them for this show, would you do it?
That's a good question. I'll have to think about it.
If they don't shut down your channel?
Yes, I would, of course.
Of course, because you depend on YouTube, right?
Exactly.
On this channel?
Not so much on Red Pill. That would really upset me.
If you rely on the state and it tells you to dance like a monkey, will you do it? The population's heavy reliance on the government lets them control people, aiming to increase dependence for easier control. For me, that's clearly the move, but that's the move that's been happening since time immemorial. First with religion, now with political dogmas like wokeism, all of this.
Totally Mark in Andorra, all this wokeism and so on hasn't arrived yet, right?
Andorra is a small country with 89,000 people located in the Pyrenees between France and Spain. So, integrated in Europe, we're not part of the European Union, but we are in Europe. Our co-princes are the Bishop of Lascaux and the President of France. So the European influence in Andorra is really strong. So even though Andorra, because of its type of population, which is more traditional, that whole woke thing is a bit distant for us. Little, by contagion effect, it practically starts to take hold. Andorra has a socialist party and a group similar to Podemos, so to speak. Gradually, it's gaining support. In fact, a recent news story was all about the state paying for sex changes for gender change. This happened recently in Andorra, where the Bishop of Lascaux serves as a co-prince. It's odd that in this country you can't have an abortion, but you can change your sex, isn't it? But of course, little by little, because of where you're located, because of your foreign policy, everything that comes to Europe ends up affecting you, right? So now there's a very interesting debate in Andorra about, hey, should we integrate more with Europe or not? The public leans no, but the government leans yes. And what I say is, I would think yes is a good idea if Europe were different, but since I don't like Europe as it is right now, anything moving Europe in that direction is bad. Europe is falling behind the world and will be even more so in 10 or 15 years. It will be a vacation museum where we excel at pouring beers and serving patatas bravas. But will we? And who will come? Chinese people, Americans, and maybe people from further north in Europe will come, but we are absolutely the tourist destination. We have beaches and waiters. Because Spain isn't innovating in anything.
Does that also include France, Germany, all of Europe, or mainly Spain?
Well, I think Spain's luck is that it has beaches. That's a differentiating factor, but France is the same. France, I think it's the same as Italy, right? Unless Maloney changes things, no, but I think we'll end up like that geographical region that in the past was incredibly prosperous. I think we're going to end up like that.
Yes, and it's a shame. Are you pro-European Union, Mark?
Excuse me?
Before we get into this little thing, were you born in Andorra? Are you Andorran?
No, I was born in Barcelona.
Okay, because you said we are.
It's just that I've been here for 13 years. My adult life has mostly been in Andorra. I feel like one of them, even though I don't have a passport because I'm not a national, but I feel like one of them. And I fight for that place to do well because I have a special affection for it, because it's the country that has seen me grow, has seen me prosper, and thanks to it, in part, I'm where I am today. You always have to be grateful, right?
How old are you?
I'm 35 and I've been in Andorra since I was 22.
You've been here since you were 22, huh? You look great for your age. I thought we were about the same age.
That's the cold in Andorra. It keeps you looking good, yeah, but about what you were saying, no. Andorra's position towards the European Union, to me it's clear. As long as Europe stays the way it is, I wouldn't get closer, that's my opinion, but...
What do you mean by the way it is? Explain it to me. What is it about Europe that you don't like?
The European Union was created with good intentions. Let's look back a bit further, right? World War I, devastation, destruction, death. No, wars are bad since people die and populations are destroyed.
It depends who you ask. Let me be clear.
Of course, for the general population, I mean...
But maybe they're good for those who cause them. That's why you don't come here. Sometimes that's why they've recommended you not to come here.
No. I'm clear that for those who sell weapons, war is good, and for the companies that make tanks, war is good.
And for those who finance them too?
Sure, but I'm interested in the general population, and for them, it's bad. We were coming from a major controversy between Germany and other countries, and it was decided to create, first of all, an organization to unite us at a commercial and economic level, which many people call capitalism. The economy is the best way to avoid wars, because if you manage to establish trade between several countries, the incentive to destroy that trade, which would be to start a war, goes against it. So what the European Union does at first and later consolidates as the European Union is to try to prevent wars and conflict in Europe, and I think that purpose is very good. Hey, we establish commercial ties, we become very good friends, we all make money together, people get access to better services, better products at lower prices, and we all win. So far, so good. What's the problem? The European Union can both unite countries and prevent wars, which is good. It also allows big lobbies to influence a much larger territory than before. Imagine you're a pharmaceutical company, okay? Previously, you had to go through each country bribing or persuading. So, the people with decision-making power so your product can enter more easily, right? Now you only need to convince one person in Brussels named Wonderland. If Wonderland agrees, everything else is settled. This also makes it much easier for lobbies to apply pressure. So, I don't like the lobbying part, I don't like the bureaucratic part. Having thousands of European public officials earning a lot at our expense seems like a waste to me. I've been to Brussels, seen it firsthand, and have friends who work there, so I know how things are. It's mostly bureaucrats shuffling papers, writing non-binding reports, and defending their party's policies more than those of the European Union. Wasting the hard-earned money of people who wake up early to run their businesses seems disgraceful to me. I already think Spain has too many politicians. So, on top of that, if we add the European supranational layer, then the European bureaucracy part, I don't like it. The initial idea, I love it, but it's just that it has turned into something else, right?
What do you think about the deindustrialization of Spain after joining the European Union? People complain about Francisco Franco, but under Franco we had a strong industry.
Yes, but that comparison is terrible. They're from different times. Yes.
Why? Before we had a better industry, and once we joined the European Union, once the transition started, all that industry went down the drain. I'm not here playing devil's advocate.
Saying, oh, huge.
Franco, I kiss your balls, right? But looking back, I realized that we had a much stronger industry than we have today.
We can discuss the 80s after Franco when the industry was strong, but that changed, especially in the 90s. But it's not so much the European Union itself, it's more about the free market. No, and you know I'm a liberal, and to me that makes some sense with some nuances. Of course, when the world becomes globalized, what they call globalization, you're able to produce in China and bring it here in no time, right? So, does it make more sense for someone in Spain to be sewing soccer jerseys? Okay, they earn a decent salary and have the right to decent housing, right? Or that someone in China or Southeast Asia sews it for a much lower price for the consumer so that the production cost is cheaper, which is good. So, if you specialize each country according to its characteristics to produce one thing, okay? You make the market much more efficient and the consumer so that you can buy a t-shirt for 10 euros at Zara or Mango. And that's good, because if all textile production were in Catalonia or Spain, the t-shirt would be much more expensive for you. Is it acceptable for a company to relocate to a country with lower cost due to expense concerns? I think it's fine, because there's another factor. In that country, they were poor and starving. Now, thanks to this move, they're no longer poor or starving in that country. The poor win because they're lifted out of poverty. The Western consumer also benefits by getting the product at a lower price. That's the theory, and it's fine.
The theory is fine.
Sure.
Now comes the practice.
What was I saying, right? So, in Spain, what we have to do is focus on high value added sectors. Okay? Waiter, hospitality worker, of course. Ultimately, we plan to develop microchips and cutting edge technology here. But in the end, I look at what's in Spain and in Spain. What we have right now is an industry based on service and on service of a certain quality, in my opinion. Not low cost, but not high class either, so to speak. You say you've eliminated the industry and rely on outsiders, but still haven't done what you should have. The idea was good, but the execution failed.
Thank you. I just have reservations about the free market.
That's why I'm joining this podcast enthusiastically.
Okay.
But the idea is that I believe in
The free market. As long as we're in a similar system,
okay?
we can't. For example, I don't see Donald Trump as a free market champion. He doesn't want direct competition with China, which I think is fine. It's not that, gentlemen, I'm not saying I'm a fan of Donald Trump, but in this specific case, I think he's right.
Right? Let me clarify. A president doesn't come here to enforce the free market, but to defend his people. In Spain, we're unclear about that since we've gotten lost in wokeism and such. Of course,
In Spain, uncertainty is common with Pedro Sanchez in power.
Donald Trump isn't defending the free market or interventionism, but what he thinks is best for his people. And at that point, I respect him, whether or not I agree with the measures he takes.
But let's talk about the case of China.
Okay?
Let's talk as if I were European instead of Spanish, which is a distinction I often make. We're Spain. France and Germany are their own countries. I dislike viewing us as a group, and I don't think it's helpful, but that's another subject. As Europeans, we have the largest automotive industry in the world, basically Mercedes, Audi, well, the Germans.
Specifically, okay.
But the Chinese impose a huge tariff on us so that the Chinese can drive Mercedes.
Correct?
And on the other hand, the free market says that we, free market, they can bring their products here without any kind of tariff.
Of course.
It's not fair, just like the comparison you made earlier. Because of that, they have a much cheaper workforce. So their products are easier for consumers and everyone else to buy. Which also isn't fair. It can't be a free market if there aren't similar conditions.
If not,
The market is rigged. I also don't trust the free market in the city of London or Wall Street. Because at the end of the day, if it were a free market and the market regulated itself, and if there wasn't a hidden hand weaving it, there wouldn't be the Nancy Pelosi tip-off like, hey, put your money here, hey, do this, because some people can destabilize markets, causing millions to go bankrupt instantly while a few profit greatly.
100, but that secondly is corruption and it's criminal. The thing is that you have to, yes, it's criminal, of course, no.
I know it's criminal.
It's criminal, but proving it and getting a prosecution is another matter. Our laws are supposed to protect us, but in reality, they don't work. About the first point, I get it. It's like agreeing to box with both hands tied behind my back. Yes.
Literally.
We're liberals, not idiots, and we're not indifferent. However, it is true that letting Chinese products enter Europe is good for us, and for the consumer and user, it's great. Well, but what happens if I go by the price? And given the crappy salaries in this country? I understand and respect that people go by the price. When it comes to buying a vehicle, you always need to have a minimum standard of quality and safety, right? Do you buy a Mercedes, BMW, or a Chinese car?
A Chinese car?
That's fine up to that point because you're giving your citizens the right to buy a very cheap car and everyone is happy, but what happens then?
That's a micro view, but on a macro level.
What happens if you don't buy Mercedes, BMW, or Volkswagen? Well, the factories close, people are left without jobs, and you end up without a job. So, will people who lose their jobs and become poor have to buy a Chinese car? If they can even afford to buy a car? So, of course, it's hard to open borders and let a product in because the consequence is that you end up without jobs. So, what would a liberal like me say in this circumstance? No, because the issue is your automotive workforce in Europe shouldn't focus solely on the automotive industry. It needs to focus on something the Chinese can't do that also offers more added value, you know? What's the problem? The Chinese used to sew balls and t-shirts, okay?
And now they focus on adding value.
But now they make you an electric car with quality similar to Tesla's, okay? And they're almost able to put a rocket into orbit just like Elon Musk. So the theory is that the Chinese just do as they please, which is low value. That theory has changed, and the conclusion is that the Chinese are overtaking us on the left. It's very clear, and it's a fact. What is true here is that we stand out because we have more regulations than they do. We're much more idealistic than they are. We sent them
Don't forget something very important.
the thing about the plugs.
We put the little plastic piece so the plug doesn't fall out.
So that's where we win, and that's where we'll be.
We lose with the plug thing, huh?
When we die, we'll get to heaven, and they'll say, "You are the best. Congratulations."
Is that so?
The issue is countries like China, Singapore, and Hong Kong move ahead of you, overtaking on the left. So countries go like a missile because they're not wasting time on nonsense. They're focused on what they need to be focused on. So, free market, yes, with restrictions, but if you tie one of my hands behind my back, then no.
For example, Juan Ramon Rayo, a strict liberal, would argue for no restrictions, right?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the points where I don't agree with Juan Ramon as far as I understand.
I respect him and have learned a lot. I've listened to over 20 hours of his content. But one day he said that liberalism too, liberalism as he understands it. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm confusing him with another liberal, but I'm almost sure it's Juan Ramon. That borders aren't liberal either. That borders aren't really liberal.
Right? Let's see.
Damn, I already said it. Hey, 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 something like that, right?
We did a podcast together a few months ago. For me, Juan Ramon Rayo is a role model. I support him on Patreon since before COVID. I mean, I love it. But it's true that the ideas of the Austrian school, the liberal ideas, when you implement them in reality, there are things that need to be reviewed, and one of them, in my opinion. But I also understand him, it's the opening of borders. I mean, that's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Why? Because the free market doesn't take into account that the people who enter the country, everyone would enter legally if there were no borders, of course. These people, what they're going to do, first of all, is bad for workers because any Spanish worker with a medium or low qualification will lose their job. Because outsiders are willing to work for less.
100%.
So if you get rid of the minimum wage, which Juan Ramon Rayo would do, because as a liberal, right, and you let a lot of people in, all the medium and low-skilled jobs will be taken by immigrants. So, all Spaniards without high qualifications are excluded, making the population poorer. So, when I see that the left, and again I'm generalizing, is pro-immigration, I don't understand it. Business owners love cheap immigrant labor, right?
I mean,
It should be the other way around. The right should be the ones letting immigration in and the left opposing it, but in a paradoxical way, it's actually the opposite. And I don't get it. I don't get it.
I think the right focuses more on social issues, identity, culture, and resisting Islamization. Because the right usually has more affinity with traditions, with roots, which I think is good. And the left, I just think they're simply enemies of everything good. So they at the end of the day, and to be fair, the right too, in a certain sense, but damn, at the end of the day, obviously I'm not from Vox.
Let me be clear, Jota, if you ask me. I wrote an essay in 5th grade at school, and I remember perfectly I wrote, I think the world shouldn't have borders because it belongs to everyone. And I think we should help everyone no matter where they come from, and we should welcome everyone. And I wrote that in 5th grade, and I got a really good grade in writing. Did you take any pictures or anything like that?
It was a 10.
No, I didn't put it in. At 35, do kids still believe? I mean, if you ask me, do you want people to die in Gaza or in Africa? No, I'd rather not. I want to help everyone, welcome them, and provide what they need. Because as a human, I empathize with other humans, and I empathize with animals too. I mean, just imagine, but that's a childish, woke mentality and not understanding how the world works. I wish I could, but if you let 20 million immigrants into Spain, you'll have a housing problem, just like you. First, there's nowhere to put them, and second, won't they make people poorer? Consider who you owe and who you defend. If you defend the world, let everyone in. But defending your country while doing that is suicide. So it all depends on who you defend, whose side you're on. What's your goal? If your aim is to protect everyone, then let everyone in. What?
The thing is that homeland, nation, and country are concepts still considered far right by many today. Defending your country is far right. That's literally how it is. And looking out for the interests of your people, even for those who attack you, is seen as something negative, something harmful.
Me, selfish, I can even accept that because of the way I see the world. What I've been taught is that first you protect your family, then you protect your people, then your fellow countrymen, and then if everyone is protected, you protect others. But if thinking that you have to protect your family and loved ones first is far right, then I guess I'm far right. But I don't think so.
But at the end of the day, I talked about this with Victor quite a while ago. The labels people put on us shouldn't affect us, and in fact we should wear them like a badge. I don't know if you saw my video where I say, am I far right or am I sexist? I'm making a series where I say all the bad things you say I am, so let's make a series explaining why I am, because I stand for this. I'm far right, so let's say I'm far right because I defend the borders. I'm far right because I defend my culture.
I am traditions.
I'm sexist because I think men and women aren't the same and because I like to pay for a woman's dinner. So should we totally make those labels our own?
Yes.
I'm far right, yes, I'm sexist, yes, I'm whatever you can think of, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to be able to convince you. If thinking the things I mention in those videos means being that,
I am, and it's also very important. I completely agree with what you say, but it's also very important to explain it to people so they understand. You don't have two options. Just give the resources to your grandfather in the nursing home who's in very bad shape, okay? Or give them to an immigrant who just arrived, the immigrant who comes poor. Obviously poorer than the local people. If they ask for help, they're going to get it because they're poorer than the local people. Aid isn't based on skin color, race, religion, or origin.
but by poverty,
By poverty. So the person who arrives is poorer than you, they end up draining public resources and getting all the social aid. This is normal, since letting them in means they're poorer than local poor people, making the local poor middle class. So, you earn a lousy €1,000 a month and they tell you no, you're middle class. So, is that good or bad? Immigration for the working class.
it's terrible for the middle class too. The only ones who can benefit from it are the big businessmen.
Absolutely. And with one caveat that this immigration is not problematic. I mean, the way I see it as a businessman and as a person, yes.
We're not even talking about crime at this point.
For me, people coming to live in Spain who are willing to work for a damn low salary, that's great. I don't really care since I'm in Andorra doing my job. I hire lawyers and officials. I mean, I don't need cheap labor, but for many companies, having immigrants come is a very good thing. So I think we should reconsider a bit who benefits and who is harmed. Maybe the image or the idea ends up changing on the left.
100, Mark, 100. I have a personal question for you. Abbas, what's your business model? I want you to tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurship. What position are you in today, and what steps did you take to get to where you are?
My story is simple and normal. After high school, I got a degree. Honestly, I don't even know how. I attended university despite being a terrible student, barely passing enough to get by. I studied business management in college because I enjoyed it and wanted to organize music events. Can you believe how much has changed since then? After studying, I saw that Andorra had implemented taxes and that it was going to become a country that could be interesting. I got a job offer and I left. At 22 years old, I have spent 8 years working in law firms. I am a tax specialist. I help companies and individuals pay less taxes, always within the law. I'm not going to sell you the idea that you'll pay zero, because that's what other scammers do, and I'm not like that. I help serious companies and individuals pay less. So we started our business with ABBA about 5.5 years ago, around 2020, and well, the project started off very well. But there was a turning point when Andorra became the destination for many business owners, entrepreneurs, and wealthy individuals. And my company is highly specialized in moving people from Spain to other countries. In fact, now we move people to Andorra, we move people to Dubai, but we move people anywhere in the world. Actually, we have offices in Dubai and Andorra. So one of our main areas is international tax planning, which is moving people from Spain abroad, but we also help Spanish groups, Andorran groups. In terms of accounting, tax, and legal management, we have lawyers, so we also do a bit of corporate law. I began alone in a co-working space, coming from a humble family. My father is a janitor and my mother a preschool teacher. A typical family from a modest Barcelona neighborhood. I started my own business alone with no help, sponsor, or capital. Me, with a laptop in a co-working space, started working really hard. And by working really hard, I got here. That's the story in a nutshell. I don't have anything special, it's just hard work. That's why my story isn't very inspiring. Because what people want is to make easy money. What people want is OnlyFans. Like, look, they've made $1 million on OnlyFans. That's what people want, easy and lots of money. And fast. My story is slow, hard, and with a good ending. That's the conclusion.
I think that people who want things fast will always be left wanting more. Fast things never really come, man.
There are people who get it, but it's exceptional. I mean, there are people who make it exceptionally. For me, what worries me is that I see girls nowadays who are 17 or 18 years old who are more focused on, let's see if I start an OnlyFans than on studying for a degree, for example. And that's a problem, a social problem, you know? No disrespect to OnlyFans creators, but I don't do it.
I don't respect it. I don't respect the fact that you do OnlyFans. I respect you as a person and as a human being. I treat you with the dignity that every human being deserves. But that, specifically that side of you, isn't it basically that you're prostituting yourself online? To all OnlyFans girls in Andorra like me, leave it behind and find Christ.
Have I seen any of your debates with an OnlyFans girl around here? I have pretty mixed feelings. I have a major contradiction here.
Because as a liberal,
On one hand, as a liberal, I believe that everyone can do whatever they want, so...
that's why I come to the conservative side, man.
Yeah.
But you can censor sometimes.
But in the end, man, I mean, I think everyone has to do what they want, right? I'm more concerned about thousands of guys paying a girl than the girl herself. I'm more worried about the demand side.
I'm concerned about both, but the demand needs to be addressed, you know? Look, I totally agree with you.
Of course, I mean, there is. We start from the fact that people generally get paid a crappy salary, right?
Yes.
You take that low salary and instead of saving, pay a girl to chat. For me, I respect that, you know? I mean, I respect that everyone does what they want with their money, but I find it worrying, like on a social level, you know? But for a girl to see that there are a bunch of guys willing to pay and then say, pay me, to me, it seems like a brilliant business decision, and I think she's free to do it if she wants. It doesn't hurt anyone, especially socially, so I think it's fine. Can we debate this? Yes.
Especially the good one, too.
Some addict who might lose their money, right?
Right, man. Pornography generates dopamine levels that turn you into an addict at the end of the day.
Pornography.
Look, man, I've been an epic nutcase, addicted in nearly every way you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried alcohol and weed, plus a bit of everything else.
Okay.
I don't mind admitting it.
Mm-hmm.
And there hasn't been any vice that's been harder for me to quit cold turkey than pornography. I mean, seriously, it's tough, you know? It really gets to you.
If you argue vice, I'm not addicted at all. Still, quit smoking, drinking, drugs, quit everything.
Tobacco gets you going, seriously, you know? This kills in the no porn. No, in the no porn, there's no kind of... People aren't educated about the harm it does. And no, if I'm at home, I jerk off, I do it 3 times a day, that's no big deal. Yes, it does, my friend. And it doesn't just harm the person who... She usually acts mostly as an actress. Only 2 or 3 actors are known. But it also harms the one who consumes it. So yes, you do harm. I mean, your content harms the one who consumes it, and you also harm yourself in the process.
There are 2 things here, not just one. I think it's important to inform people that addiction itself is not bad. That's something that needs to be communicated, and I think it's good for people to have that information. But if people see that, like with tobacco, and choose to use it, that's their choice. Does it worry me socially? Yes, from my perspective and ideology, it concerns me, but I respect that it can be done. I mean, I don't see this being banned. I don't see it because I think it would also infringe on a person's freedom. I mean, the girl, sure, it's the easy way and it's bad for society in the long run, but she's free to do it. The problem is that the girl freely chooses that path. I'd rather my daughter be a doctor than an OnlyFans actress, but I'll also say this. If my daughter tells me, hopefully that day never comes, but if she says, hey, look, I've opened an OnlyFans account and I'm doing it, personally, I would be upset because I don't want my daughter to do that, but I have no choice but to respect her, man. I mean, the point is that morality or your moral perspective, morality has changed throughout history. Morality was very different 500 years ago, and in 200 years it may change again. So, imposing your idea of morality on everyone and restricting their freedom, that seems dangerous to me. Because today it seems like it would only affect a few people.
How would you ban it? That would impact many people. How will they manage? The author?
No, but I'm talking from the supply side, from those who do it. Wouldn't you mainly be causing issues for a group of girls?
More and more.
But if we start to prohibit what we understand to be morally reprehensible, we have to be careful with that. That's the thing.
Just so you know, I have my own internal struggle. I don't have an extremely clear opinion about that either. I listen to Lupe Batayan and find her convincing. Do you know who she is?
Yes.
And she convinces me. She makes me see that prohibition can be a good tool to censor certain negative, harmful behaviors that are scientifically proven to harm both those who do them and those who consume them. But at the same time, I also understand, just imagine, that a government comes along that considers something morally wrong that I don't see that way. So, under their criteria, are they going to restrict my freedom? So we get into a conflict that can become delicate. And there, I mean, I understand it. I don't have an opinion on this specific issue of prohibition or not. Too formed, because at times I think about all the pros it would have, and there would be many. But the downside can come. The only downside I see, which is the one I just mentioned, could be very big.
There's only a 1% chance this downside will occur.
We already lose.
So, I see there's no single or absolute morality that everyone agrees on. I try not to impose my morals on others. So, for me, the restriction of freedom should be limited exclusively to those activities a person does that cause harm and not those that don't cause harm. Freedom ends where it harms another person, focusing on feeling harmed, not causing harm. That's why when it comes to OnlyFans, I'm in favor of not using it. I neither consume nor create OnlyFans content at any point. But banning it, prohibiting it, seems dangerous to me.
Have you considered that my freedom stops where another's begins? What's your view on abortion?
Well, look, that's a pretty controversial topic. In fact,
You're at the factory, my friend. We like these topics here.
I mentioned this on a podcast and also outside actually on Alada 3. Do you know them?
Yes, they're great.
Great people. I hardly knew them, but after being invited to the podcast and watching some episodes, I was impressed. They have a very conservative Catholic outlook. No, of course, what do I see? Abortion is about a woman's right to control her own body. It's my body. I decide, not that we give birth, we decide. That story, and then there's the question of what is the fetus or what is that fertilized egg? No, of course. If you believe a fertilized egg is already a human being, then I oppose abortion. If you understand that that fertilized egg is not yet a human being, is not yet a person, I could understand and I share the right to abort. So that's where I stand, and it's a topic I haven't especially developed, but it's a problem because if you understand that the fertilized egg is a human being, abortion is murder. So I understand the position of...
Is against it, and science agrees 98, but there's no empirical proof it's not a human being.
I can tell you what I know, but I don't have a fully formed opinion yet, and I'm still figuring things out. I understand that abortion isn't a contraceptive method. That's clear to me.
And that's how it's used?
I've seen this happen often and think it's wrong. For example, here's a case. A man rapes a woman and leaves her pregnant. I do believe that woman should be able to have an abortion. Come on, I'm absolutely sure about that. I'm absolutely sure about that. You're not going to have a child with the face of the guy who raped you. Come on, you have to agree with me on this.
Right?
So, do you think that if a man rapes a woman, the woman has to have the child?
A woman, generally, she can't get pregnant, let's say, a young woman of 35 years old. Well,
woman from 18 years old on, okay? So you?
Two wrongs don't make a right. What does this mean? Regardless, what if I told you he's just a human being?
No,
Imagine that he is the product of a rape.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell?
No, of course not, but his mother would.
His mother would. But then him? Nothing, relax. He looked at me with a face like... The point I'm making is the following. I don't think that when talking about abortion, it's most appropriate to talk about that specific case. I think they make up roughly 0.05%.
Or less, even less, much less.
But it's unlikely for a woman to get pregnant from rape. But I would tell you that taking a life, killing that human being for the crimes of their father, is not the solution.
For example, if the mother has the child and then kills them because they are the result of a rape, I would think that's wrong. I mean, you know what I mean, right?
Exactly, but then we come back to the philosophical, moral, and scientific question of whether it's a human life or not. If it's a human life, you start to reconsider how it was conceived. It doesn't give me or take away my right to end it.
Of course.
It's just that it's very complex. Another case is, I used to be like you in that regard, but I've become more conservative.
If a medical test shows the fetus has a problem and the child will be born sick and suffer, what do you think?
My grandmother was one of those women. They told her yes, with the tools they had at that time.
Very different.
And my grandmother turned out fine.
Of course.
I see only one situation where the fetus can be killed, and I'll explain which one. Okay, if the mother's life is in danger, then yes, it should be prioritized, and the mother should decide 100% because that's already a matter of you. You should never be required to perform heroic acts.
I mean,
you can't risk your life for someone else's. That's never been the practice. Still, failing to render aid is an issue. If you see someone dying, you have the duty, and in fact, it's a crime to just walk by. It's a crime not to call an ambulance. Therefore, in that specific case, I would understand abortion, but it's a matter of force majeure.
The way I see it, if the mother is at risk of dying or at risk of being seriously harmed, I think there's no doubt she should be able to have an abortion. If a doctor confirms the fetus will have severe complications and illnesses, I believe she should be allowed to have an abortion.
How is that certified? I'm just saying, careful, okay?
Well, let's start from the premise that it's possible to be sure they will be born with a very serious condition. If possible, I think the mother should be allowed an abortion, especially in cases of rape or non-consensual sex. In that situation, I believe the woman should have the right to an abortion. So, what has Spain's legislator done that Andorra hasn't? In Spain, they've said that until a certain point, the fetus isn't considered a human being. So you can terminate the pregnancy within that period and after a certain date. I understand it's a developed fetus, so it's no longer an option.
Overnight, one day.
Suddenly it goes from not being life to being life, right? In quotes.
Isn't it ridiculous?
Of course, but I also understand, and my current position, even though I don't like abortions at all, my current position is that the woman has the right, in quotes, to decide. In the initial stage of deciding, for any reason, I don't want this child. I ended my pregnancy, and I find it harsh and ugly.
You can't terminate the pregnancy.
Well, yes, you kill fetuses, huh? You kill the fetus? Yes, let's talk about killing the fetus. It gives me serious personal moral dilemmas.
You'll eventually see things my way since I was there too. Trust me, once you get into it and see a bit, you'll understand. Like vegans, they show videos of cows being killed, which I've seen myself. It disgusts me. The meat industry could be better. But once you do the same but with abortion, and you dig a little and see how they crush them, etc. And the baby screams because it's already formed with a little head when it's 3 months old, damn it, it's outrageous. You say this isn't normal, then get upset on top of it. I really like rabbit holes a lot, I like to go deep. Do you realize that's genetic material that's used for creams, that's used for the elites, all the waste goes to the placenta.
Seriously? Yes.
There's a multi-million-dollar industry behind that, of course.
But it's a topic, and allow me, I like to debate, I like to go in depth. My position is what I've told you. I think yes for now.
But at least it's not a rigid position, it's like I'm open to see.
And what's concerning is that a woman interrupts her pregnancy or kills the fetus. Don't say interrupts or kills the fetus, we don't like that here. Or kills the fetus, kills the fetus in the first month. Imagine what can be, in my opinion, is that you have an abortion and then go out partying at night to celebrate it. I think it's important for people to be aware that having an abortion is wrong. That the right can exist and does exist. I can understand it and I respect it.
Under certain circumstances.
But it's something that's bad, it's definitely bad, and that's something I do agree with you on.
I'm going to share an anecdote about a friend whose mother was a young Colombian. I think his mother was 18. He said he's pro-abortion, saying, imagine if I got someone like her pregnant. And I told him, Daniel, brother, if your mother were a woman today, you wouldn't even be here. Not a chance. You wouldn't be here. Thankfully, your mother was born in Colombia to a traditional family, and even after getting pregnant, her family supported her. They told her she absolutely had to have the child. Actions have consequences, so you must take responsibility. Today, I consider you a true friend.
If not,
you wouldn't be here at all. Many who support abortion don't realize they themselves resulted from a brief fling or one night of passion. And with today's mentality of first I have to visit Bali, first I have to go to Lodbog, first I have to go to Tanzania and stay at Drigles's hotels. Then I have to go do who knows what. Then I have to do something else. And in the end, has your time just passed you by? In the end, half of the people you know wouldn't even be here today.
I've done it all. Next, I want to be a father.
You already want to be a dad, don't you?
Yes, I want to. I really want to.
Well, I hope to be there at the baptism. Are you Catholic or Christian?
I was raised, yes, I'm Catholic and Christian, yes.
But are you Catholic by family, by tradition?
I'm not someone who goes to church on Sundays, nor am I super devout, but I do believe in the values associated with Christianity, and I feel like part of the community. I'm baptized, I did my first communion, I went to catechism, I dressed up as a sailor.
That's everything. Did you see it all?
Yeah, what happens is that it's true that the typical way of being a good Catholic, well, I don't go to church. No, your thing, yeah.
I want to ask you a question. Are you a founding member of Junto Abast? Because Abast and RAX Lab are the ones who organize the Economic Forum. Both the one in Andorra and Madrid, which is in its first edition.
Is that correct?
How did this idea come about?
Well, let me clarify. I'm a shareholder of RAX Labs on one hand, and I'm the managing partner of Abast. So, I'm participating in the forum from two sides. It's a project that I find incredible. That started at a dinner with Victor. He usually has ideas and visions, and I'm the one who says, dude, slow down. You know, I'm the one who keeps him in check.
Is a bit crazy, our friend, right?
Yeah, but
But then he gets things done, right?
cool things can result from that tension. And one day I thought about it and said, wow, it could be good. And he said, hey, what if we do it together? And I said, okay, let's do it. And the idea was basically just for fun. I mean, on one hand, it was for the laughs, like, hey, let's bring Juan Ramon Rayo to Andorra and have him give a talk. That was kind of the origin, because we both admire Juan Ramon Rayo a lot. Juan Ramon Rayo couldn't come that time, but he did make it to the next edition. So it was about creating a space to bring in economists we liked, and also a bit to go against the grain. You see the Davos Forum and what they discussed there, right? Hey, why not? Why don't more liberals and conservatives organize themselves? Host events that let economists speak up and join the cultural battle. Isn't that what they call it? I said, since no one does it, we can do it ourselves, right? In the end, there are two positions in life: complaining that something isn't being done or doing it yourself. We're the kind who do it ourselves, right? We launched the Andorra Economic Forum 3 years ago. Both the first and last year's editions sold out. We decided to hold an amazing event at Vista Alegre in Madrid.
And they came there. That was intense, huh?
Things got really wild because we didn't just bring Miguel Ancho Bastos, who's a real beast, Juan Ramon Rayo, Gabriel Calzada. I mean, we brought the cream of the crop of liberalism and Spanish economists. No, I mean, they are the new generation of economists who will define the era. No, and besides, Javier Milei confirmed he'd close the event. When else do you get Argentina's president to end your private event? He came to see Meloni, Macron, the Pope, and us. It was spectacular and incredible. In Madrid, we faced two issues and didn't sell out for two main reasons. Victor's Meta account was cancelled, so the event's promotion on Meta was less than expected. That's the first problem, and the second was doing it in June for 2.5 days.
It was in May.
Not June. June was at the beginning of June.
At the beginning of June, 100.
Yes, what happened? That at that time in Madrid, the hotels were super expensive. Many people across Spain wanted to come but couldn't afford it. The ticket was about 150 euros, which was reasonable for 2 days with all the speakers. It ended up being 5 euros per speaker. Was that a good price? The problem was the cost of travel and hotel, of course. People spent 4 times more on hotels than on the ticket. So, what did we do this year? We said, okay, this year we'll do it in March, also at Vista Alegre, okay, and the hotel is much cheaper. We're doing it for a day and a half, not 2.5 days, with only one night.
The very important person day, Friday and Saturday.
Correct?
Of course, man.
And that way on Saturday you can party at night, and then on Sunday, you can just leave calmly. It also ended Sunday at 9 p.m. and people had to work Monday. So there were a lot of difficulties, which in the end we kind of faced as beginners. We brought in 7,500 out of 9,000 people, which is pretty good. But it wasn't the big success we would have liked.
But even so, you didn't lose.
We broke even, but of course...
I was with Victor and he said we just broke even.
Do you think the cost of producing this event is more than $500,000? It's a lot of money. $500 from our own pockets with no public funding or help. Victor, several companies and I each contributed totaling $500,000.
And Carlos too. No, obviously, yes.
Victor and Carlos are basically the CEOs and directors of RAX, but what about Abbas? Me and my 4 partners. So in the end, it's like, well, it's our money. I mean, if the event, for whatever reason, doesn't happen, I pay €500,000. I mean, that's it, and I'm not doing it to make money. I'm doing it to make a statement. Cultural battle. To create an event where all liberals and conservatives and like-minded people, even those who aren't but want to go there to learn, can go there and listen.
Was there any conservative missing? If you want, I can give you a few names, some conservatives. You know what I'd like? I'm going to suggest an idea. We're not live, but I want it kept. I really like the format. That there is a confrontation between two people on our same side, because at the end of the day, even though we have differences, Victor, I consider him a friend now after knowing him for 2 years, but we have a good relationship. I know his girlfriend. We're all going to Strasbourg except you, huh? See?
He has to leave right away. Yeah, I know.
The point is, I don't agree with Victor on everything, or maybe even with you.
For sure.
And I would like to see at the Economic Forum, maybe more at the one in Madrid. 2 positions, one a little more conservative, one a little more like, why don't we censor, for example, pornography? It's a big debate.
Yes.
It's a big debate which is appealing. People enjoy it, especially between high-level intellectuals. They'd say, damn, I'd go and be really attentive saying, damn. It's just that the liberal is right about this, of course, but the conservative is too, because the liberal and the conservative don't always agree.
No, not at all.
In fact, we disagree on many things, but what happens is that we have a common enemy called Marxism.
Recently, I was interviewed on television in Andorra to discuss the Economic Forum and current events. We've also launched a media outlet there. I wanted to talk about that. Can we discuss it now? And Gabby, the interviewer, tells me, of course, you organize an event where you're all the same. No?
Right?
I said, if anyone who disagrees with you is far right, then we're all far right. But the reality is there were different voices at the event. Yes, it's true that we didn't confront them. I mean, for example, Iker Jimenez gave a talk and someone else gave another talk. I like confronting, I enjoy it, but we couldn't find the right moment. Also, many speakers just want to give their speech and avoid debate.
Juan Ramon Rayo loves to debate.
He loves it.
We can put Juan Ramon Rayo against someone I'll tell you about now who's a little more...
Yes.
He's right-wing but views the state differently. Because at the end of the day, I have a big internal struggle with the way I think. I used to be a narco-capitalist.
Hey, who is it? I'm looking for a rival for Juan Ramon Rayo. But he tears apart everyone he comes across. It's complicated.
He destroys them, but I have a strong rival. The problem is that they're tough people.
Not brave.
But Juan Ramon Rayo, what I like about the liberal side is that they take not censoring to the extreme.
Of course.
To no one.
Of course.
And I think that's extremely positive. I'm very liberal about a lot of things, and then about many others as well. Maybe I lean more toward censorship or see it as something to consider, but I'm not saying it's the solution. Censor things like pornography, restrict certain speeches, or silence those who believe women have penises. I think the free circulation of ideas is positive and people should choose which one they find most convincing, but if not, do you confront them?
Of course.
What I want is for there to be...
But I also have an internal contradiction here. I have to meet with Rayo to talk to him to see how he sees these things because it creates a contradiction for me, you know? Ultimately, it's about hate speech, not its true nature.
Yeah, of course.
Me? You because you are hate speech? Yeah.
I am it personified.
A guy who puts on a hood and says that we need to plant bombs in shopping malls, I understand that this guy needs to be censored. I understand that because I think committing attacks is intrinsically negative. Yes, besides.
His speech is threatening the freedom and physical integrity of others. But of course we could say that Jota, by saying that women don't have shame, is also attacking the integrity and freedom of the trans community. I mean, it's a really complex issue.
What I'm getting at is a very clear case where censorship might make sense. Censoring a terrorist, promoting terrorist attacks. I think we can all agree that it should be censored, except for the terrorists or those who believe in their cause, right? So we're assuming per se that restricting freedom of speech can happen in some cases. Assuming that, we all agree. No, everything is open to interpretation. If when you talk about penises, there are people who think you're attacking and causing harm, then you are too. A message of hate from the state. It's hard to define what's acceptable, so an easy answer is to say everything is, which means nothing, is a message of hate. But then you have people who might be, I don't know, advocating terrorism or advocating anything, so it's difficult. We need to be objective. Just because something bothers John doesn't mean it's a message of hate. It can't work that way. How you make others feel matters, since everyone reacts differently. Some are more sensitive than others. It's crucial to clarify what is and isn't, especially when in doubt. I think what we need to do is let people express themselves freely. That's the point.
Aren't we discussing freedom? Donald Trump is firing multiple liberal members. To clarify, liberals in the US are left-wing. I know, well, it's just that in the United States there is no left, but liberalism and so on are the progressives over there. What do you think about Donald Trump or the FBI firing 2 girls for kneeling for Black Lives Matter? Victor posted it. Not sure if you saw the news.
I haven't seen it.
What do you think about Jimmy Kimmel?
Have you seen that one? Yes.
What do you think about that? About him giving his opinion on the Charlie Keene thing, well, for making it a bit of a joke and all that? I agree, but the thing is, I don't face that moral conflict because I'm not that liberal.
But do you agree with laughing about an attack? I mean, you can agree with Charlie Kirk or not, but you can't agree with someone getting shot in the neck?
I think it's fine he was fired.
All right, so, well...
They've given Disney a platform again, which will ultimately bankrupt Disney because go woke, go broke.
Yeah, no, but, well, that's a business decision, a private one, right? If they think that's the best. Look at Jaguar. Jaguar has done incredibly well. Have you seen? Yeah.
Man.
He's done great?
They've gone up in the stock market, haven't they?
Woke, that's it, no problem.
Jaguar nearly went bankrupt, for those unaware. Basically, for making a commercial with people who looked like they came out of the Hunger Games and not a single car appeared. There were non-binary people, racialized people.
Here's the thing. If you're a private agent and choose to go woke, that's fine. You might go bankrupt or not. It depends on the world. But the state forces it on you, and that's what bothers me, okay?
Exactly. The issue is with public education. Recently, my private school community sent a questionnaire to parents. A questionnaire about gender equality at home. For the good?
One thing is, be careful because of the issue of freedom. I'm a liberal, right? People should be able to express themselves and vote freely, but what does freely really mean? A small child isn't free. I mean, a kid who's 9, 10, 11 years old will say and do whatever you tell them to say and do. They're very impressionable, and I see today's society as full of little kids. That is, if the media comes out saying that this is what you have to do and this is what's good, everyone repeats it like it's a chant. So, of course, to what extent is a woman free or not free when she covers herself from head to toe and covers her whole body? It's a topic we haven't brought up. But does she make that decision freely or not? Because that's the key to everything.
And if she freely decides to stop doing it, will there be consequences or not?
Because that's not freedom, but...
Of course.
Going back to what Charlie Kirk said, which I find very interesting, I think what Donald Trump is doing is not firing or hiring based on Elon Musk. He kept him close for a while, but couldn't convince him outside. Donald Trump does everything he can for two reasons: to stay in power, which is most important, and to protect his country. That's why he wants to take over the Federal Reserve. I don't think he agrees that the government should control the Federal Reserve. I don't think he agrees.
I think the Federal Reserve, in fact, we'll talk about that later.
Donald Trump says he wants to control the Federal Reserve and believes his actions will benefit the country. Donald Trump wants to remain in power, just like other politicians. He's making decisions based on what's best for his economy, not on liberal or non-liberal views. I respect that, even though I disagree with many of them. Still, I respect that he's defending Americans.
Me too. It's truly an issue. It's a very delicate topic, everything we've talked about today. And speaking of freedom of expression, where is the limit? What is a hate crime and what isn't? The media here play a very important role.
A very important role.
You and Victor decided to start a media outlet in Andorra, right?
Yes, it's another one of Victor's ideas. All the credit goes to him. He'd insisted for months that I do this, and I told him to calm down because I thought he was rushing. How can we launch a digital newspaper when we know nothing about digital journalism? But we do know something, right? First, we know something, and second, we found someone to run the newspaper. So, a journalist with experience who's been doing journalistic work for years and who's supporting us in all this. So we've created this. It's called La Veu Lliure, which means the free voice in Catalan, okay? We discuss current economic, political, and social events in Andorra and worldwide. In fact, I always say it's like a side project, right? Let's see how it goes, how it works, and in the future, we'll expand it, if appropriate, to other regions like Spain or Catalonia, right?
Man, the original plan has to be to expand to Spain. Are right-wing or liberal newspapers needed?
Yes.
There aren't any.
No, look, I do tell you that I think it's positive. In Andorra, there's been much gossip about whether they support a specific political party or not. It's just another media outlet, and I believe more media is better since people can compare news from different sources. And in the end, you can believe us more or believe someone else more, but you have two perspectives or three or four perspectives. I think that's a good thing. So from here, whoever wants to read our newspaper can read it, and whoever doesn't, well, they don't have to. There's no problem, but it's a really cool experience. In fact, it's a very interesting project that aims precisely to enter an industry that is key in politics, in the economy, and in society.
It's always been called the Fourth Estate?
Yes, why is that?
Not anymore? What are your thoughts on Spain's Fourth Estate?
What fourth estate in Spain?
A, are you referring to the media? The press is supposed to be the one constantly challenging the executive power and the legislative power.
Clearly.
But not anymore. Now they're just whores.
Journalists are now propagandists. I also said this during the television interview in Andorra. Each press outlet is influenced by its own background. I can predict who they'll support, how they'll present news, and their reasons for doing so. The moment the reader is able to anticipate what news the newspaper is going to publish and how they're going to frame it, doesn't that mean something is going wrong here? And indeed, each media outlet is aligned with a political party and is the party's propaganda machine. And that's a problem. If journalists don't criticize politicians, it doesn't matter if your name is Vito Quiles or anything else. But if the journalist doesn't criticize what the politician does, There is no media oversight, and if there is no media oversight, the only safeguard left for media oversight is influencers. I mean, a YouTuber. Blanco Hetero, for example, discusses politics openly and owes no one anything. It's a clear case of when I want to see news from a perspective that's not biased by a media outlet. Sergio discusses, compares, and shares a news story. You may like him or not, or like him more or less, but he discusses this. Victor, do you do this here too? At Spicy, when I'm not censored, we try to do it.
Bastards at Spicy.
Please.
Let him talk and stop talking to Mark. He has a lot to say.
But I think it's important, and I think the press has a lot of power. But as long as there is what is known as institutional advertising, which is basically a bribe from the government to the media, to control them, freedom of information will be restricted, leading back to dependency. If your media outlet relies on public aid or institutional advertising, which are essentially the same thing, you're not free. And if you're not free, you depend. And if you depend, what happens? You can't say what you think or what you want. You have to say what your boss, which is the government, tells you to say. Some journalists said Pedro Sanchez called to tell them what to put on the front page. So, damn, what more do you want? And then, when a media outlet tries to distance itself, well, it faces reputational problems, funding issues, and so on.
So 5 pieces of advice you would give to a young Spaniard who wants to succeed in life?
5 pieces of advice. I'm not really one to give advice, even though things have gone well for me, but that's just my experience.
Do you have your life figured out at 35?
Bastard.
I'm asking you for advice because you're in a position to give it.
Well, let's see.
They're always welcome when asked for.
I'm going to tell you what I've done, which has worked very well for me, though it might not work for someone else. Look, what I've done is I've studied a lot. I used to be a terrible student, but especially when I got to high school and even more in college, I really got my act together. Being educated means having knowledge, which adds value and is very important. Did you get your education at the university or outside of the university? You can get training in a trade. You can get training on YouTube. On YouTube, you have incredible free courses.
And
you learn a lot on a specific topic. It's important to choose carefully what to study. My friend studied geology and knows a lot about rocks, but he doesn't make any money and is very sad. Because in the end, everyone who studies, at least their first degree, does it to find a profession. They say not to study what you like or want, but what will be useful for your future. Work to earn a living first, then study what you enjoy. For now, focus on your top interest, but ensure it offers career opportunities.
Focus on building an in-demand job skill.
Exactly. The third piece of advice is after you get your education and a job, work very hard to prove yourself because a degree alone is necessary but not enough. When someone brings their degree to my office, I tell them they must prove themselves through work before earning recognition here. And I think it's very important for people to have the patience to show their bosses what they're capable of doing. First, prove yourself before asking for a raise. Give first, then ask. This is important, and it's especially challenging for the younger generation. The fourth point is, once you have a job and work hard and earn money, save, and invest, because saving is fundamental, but if you don't invest it, your money loses value every year. It's not just inflation, although inflation is one of the problems, but money depreciates, meaning you need to put it to some use. I'm not telling you to take a trading course, but I am telling you to be aware that you have to do something with your money. First, earn it, then save it, and then manage it. And the fifth piece of advice, and this is the craziest one of all, is be happy, man, be happy. I mean, if starting a business makes you happy, do it. If being a public employee makes you happy, take the civil service exam if you want. We need good public employees. But whatever you do it with love, man, do it with enthusiasm, do it with passion, because if you don't, your life is going to be a damn mess. If you dislike your job and are unhappy all day, change jobs and find one that makes you happy. Don't stay there, because it's not like you have to be there. No, go find your own way. There are options, there are decisions you can make to be happy, man. So look for one, make the right decision, and try to be happy. Those would be my 5 pieces of life advice.
They've been really good. And I'm going to finish with describe Pedro Sanchez to me, which I know you love.
I always say that Pedro Sanchez is my sales manager.
I've heard you say it several times. That's why I'm asking you.
Is he really doing a bad job? Business people keep coming to Andorra. I get paid and live well without advertising. He handles that for me. Pedro Sanchez seems interesting. I'd like to have dinner and talk with him someday. His story is incredible. How is he kicked out, returns to the party, takes control, and gets funded? From his father-in-law who owns brothels, or I don't know what the hell he has?
Are there gay saunas or similar places there?
Unbelievable. How does he gain power and choose his top aides? How come they're all corrupt? I mean, how can your brother and your wife be corrupt too? It's amazing. I think he's a truly fascinating figure, and I'm telling you this from an intellectual experience. I'd like to meet him and talk to him because I admire him. He's Machiavellian.
To the fullest.
He's incredible. I've always admired Pablo Iglesias and think he's brilliant, but Pedro is even more so, since Pablo does have a little house and all. And now he takes his kids to private school and all that. That's cool. But that second division, the one in first division, is Pedro.
Pedro, he got a Bill Gates Award for Progressive of the Year.
It's incredible. Pedro?
Honestly, let me tell you something. If it didn't do so much harm, it's true that it's like something out of a movie. Is that son of a bitch admirable? How has he kept himself? How has he surfed? How does he maintain his health and physique? But the bastard is stuck there like a limpet.
And also, I'll tell you straight, he's smart, intelligent. He's making deals with Bildu, Esquerra Republicana, and others just to stay in power. And he has no ideas. He often said he wouldn't make deals, but he has, and he's still there. He doesn't care about anything, and no one asks what's happening. He's brilliant and proves that determination leads to success. Damn, you're the president, and you're holding on, and you're going to stick it out until the very last second of your term, and I respect that. Obviously, it harms the economy, society, and social peace. Everyone harms everyone else. If it weren't because it harms everyone, it would be fine on its own.
Top. I totally like finishing with this topic. Lately, I've been dropping my mask a little bit. I've always stayed neutral on this topic. But now, there's just no way to handle this anymore. What do you think? Why do the liberals, why the Millie side, the Trumpist side, the hell side? I also have a lot in common with them, but I don't get hung up on it. For saying that what's happening in Palestine is a real atrocity. Why is there the paradox that the liberal side seems to want to look the other way? When it comes to Israel and its killings?
I don't get it, since the left backs Palestine and the right backs Israel.
I have my theory that that's just to divide us, you know?
But I don't get it. I don't understand why or what it has to do with anything. Let's just stick to the facts. There's a fact, and it's that people are dying, and that's bad, okay? I mean, I advocate for the conflict to end immediately, that is, for one side to release the hostages and for the others to stop killing, okay? I think that's fundamental because after so much technology, so much science, so much of everything, the fact that we're not able to reach agreements and solutions without killing people is just unbelievable to me. First of all, I support peace, as I said before, especially regarding war. I think it's a waste of time where only those who sell weapons and those who finance them win, so nobody else benefits, right? So, Israel is rich and strong, while Palestine is poor and weak. Within that framework, I understand it and agree you should support the weak, so I get it too. But there's a lot of politics being played with Israel and Palestine. Man, I feel they don't care about Palestinian children and just use Palestine and its flag when convenient. Hey, your brother Pedro Sanchez, not Palestine. Your wife Pedro Sanchez, Palestine. I mean, whenever you bring up a topic, they pull out the Palestinian flag. And it's more like an excuse or a new message, more about protection than any real interest. That flotilla over there, wow, Palestine. Are they partying?
I'm telling you, the level of simulation we're reaching is unbelievable. Have you seen Gaza Barbie there?
Yeah.
No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Damn.
Bro, is he high too? Dude, no.
No, seriously, man. They take a cause that at first might seem noble, that at first you might say, damn.
Yeah.
The Palestinian cause is different from the Hamas cause. It's important to distinguish between them. Man, it's just a meme, man.
I'm telling you, I agree hostilities should stop on both sides. I think the United Nations and Andorra joined that statement. He said that if Palestine never released the hostages, Israel would recognize the state of Palestine. So there's a point of conflict and negotiation there, right? I agree hostilities should end now, Israel should stop attacking Palestine, and Palestine should release its Israeli hostages. And in the end, man, we're in the year 2025, man, a species that has evolved a lot. We have the guide, science, cancer cures, and space rockets. And you're telling me that we're not capable of reaching an agreement and sitting down without killing each other. Dude, I mean, sorry, I don't want to get philosophical and I don't want to sound like a hippie, but dude, I mean, let's stop killing each other, please. For me, that's the main point. So what solution do you have for Gaza? That's another issue, since people support the two-state solution. But I am very clear about this, and here I will have to do a bit more research to see if that right really exists or not. I'm not very clear about
That topic is very complex.
Of course,
And that land has been at war throughout the entire history of humanity.
the land of Jesus, uncle.
For a Templar crusade to restore it to Christian control.
Well,
Only Christ can bring order. That's me.
many died for Christ in those wars, but they were really fighting for power, not faith.
I'll also tell you that the Crusades were a defensive movement of Christianity because Islam, even with the Prophet Muhammad, truly expanded by the sword throughout the Arabian Peninsula. They reached the borders of the Byzantine Empire, and once there, they began to harass the Byzantine Empire and conquered a lot of territory, including the Holy Land. And then they said, wait.
But look, Islam wants to conquer and impose and so on, that's true, but hasn't Christianity also done the same thing historically? In the end, yes, it has done it. No, I'm not going to say.
Catholicism hasn't spread by the sword, that's just not the case. It's 350 years of being massacred in the arenas, the Roman Empire converts to Catholicism. After 3 centuries. Careful, I'm telling you, hey, 3 centuries, which isn't, of course, when you see it in the old days, but just imagine 3 centuries.
Now, yes.
Yes, we're talking about the Renaissance, practically in 1700, the Spanish Golden Age, man.
3 centuries.
Being massacred, being persecuted, they burned Rome to blame them and threw them to the lions in the Colosseum.
Yes.
Persecution, death, skinned, burned, crucified upside down. That's Christianity, and then it becomes official, but it doesn't spread by the sword until later, and it becomes global with the conquest of America.
Look, what I want to say isn't that Christianity or Islam are nothing. Ultimately, none of it matters. Religion or people, it's all the same. There are human beings who tend to conquer, to hoard power, and sometimes religion is just the excuse. I'm certain the Crusades weren't truly about religion, they were about power. And I think that at this point in history, we should start to reflect and ask ourselves, hey, is this really about one religion or another? Or is it about power and control? What is this really about? And I think we should, once and for all, stop the hostilities, stop the wars, and only justify violence for self-defense. Man, that's the only justification. Of course, I'm in favor of violence when people are enslaved and need to break free from that slavery. Of course, I'm in favor. But fighting over territory, man, that's just fucking power.
That's where self-defense comes in, because if they attack your territory and you defend yourself. Wars are not just war, it's an inherent part of being human, and it's something we have to understand. I like your philosophy, but didn't you say it's a bit hippie?
Yes.
In fact, the longest period of prosperity and world peace we've experienced was after World War II until the 2000s. And it started again after the fall of the Twin Towers, which is quite a sensitive topic. We can discuss the recent increase in wars worldwide.
But notice why hostilities ceased in 45, because those wars were devastating. A lot of people died. No one can understand how a war could be good. No one can.
The bankers.
If you let me, even bankers shouldn't think war is good.
If they sign contracts like in Ukraine, for example, BlackRock, in which they have already secured all the reconstruction. Yes. For example, they are financing in the First World War and nobody really knows what the reason for the First World War was. They started killing each other. There were a lot of funds from bankers and people of specific origin financing particular families, which I can mention, like Warburg, Rothschild, I don't mind saying it. They start financing here. Hey, this, and that. What happens? Do I end up taking control? In fact, the Federal Reserve was created in 1913, and in 1914, the Great War began. Careful, be very careful, because there are people who have the power to push certain buttons and then we start killing each other.
I understand that human nature is voristic, like how lions eat gazelles.
Damn.
I just gave myself away. But the fact that after so many years of civilization, it's still not possible to contain that natural instinct, that's what bothers me.
It's a very strong philosophical topic. But civilization is maintained through force. Otherwise, the uncivilized who are capable of using force will take over. Barbarism will come to civilization, and we civilized people will have to use force to reimpose civilization. We will be strong for having used force. We will become weak by rejecting it. The barbarians will come and uncivilize us again.
To conclude, returning to the topic of force and invasion, I'd like to bring up a point I've noted, which is that the politician and society owe themselves to the same society, right? The president of Spain should protect Spain's interests, but not necessarily those of its people. So, of course, I see policies and measures that are not clear to me at all. Who is he protecting and who is he defending, right? And I think that saying this and saying, hey, first let's defend our people, our neighbors, the people who are close to us, and then we'll defend the rest. I think this isn't being far right. Maybe it's being unsupportive. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not far right. And forgive me, but I would defend my brother before a friend. I'd defend a friend over a stranger and a close stranger before others. I prefer someone who speaks my language and shares my culture over someone who doesn't. That's not racist. You protect what's close and familiar, and I don't think that's wrong.
Mark, I'm going to tell you why. I think there's a paradox where politicians in Spain and in Europe in general, but it's not just a Spanish issue, seem to defend other people's interests. And can we talk about the United Kingdom? How is it
Getting involved?
putting people in jail for talking about replacement, putting people in jail for posts on social media about the immigration problem? And the thing is, European nations have completely lost their sovereignty. We don't have national sovereignty. We are indebted to investment funds, big banks, and those who control us through debt. That's why it won't happen until we can say, I don't owe you money anymore. I am free and sovereign, which they don't want. That's why politicians like Pedro Sanchez are awesome for them. They get awards from Bill Gates and others because at the end of the day, they serve as servants to their masters. In Spain, Pedro Sanchez doesn't govern. In France, Macron doesn't govern. In the United Kingdom, Stalmer doesn't govern. That's where the problem is, and that's where
And who rules?
the big investment funds are in charge.
BlackRock and the central banks are in charge.
The Federal Reserve is in charge.
You? There are just a few left, 4 or 5. Who are the ones in charge and decide what will happen?
I don't think it works that way. There are already mechanisms and a plan in place. Some people are essential to this story and its main actors, yet they're unaware of it. Politicians do get calls. This was especially clear during COVID. Listen, this is going forward. I don't want any of you saying, hey, I'm going to let my people do whatever they want. You're not going to put pressure with the masks. You're not going to put pressure with the vaccines. You're not going to put pressure with this. No politician at the European level from the European Union was able to say, I'm taking a stand, because the lobbies have much more power than the governments. The world is a corporatist dictatorship, and that's how I see it. I have a somewhat more conspiratorial view. You could call it that, although I think it's based on facts and not on... I'm Enrique's friend and get along well with him, but I see things as more tangible and grounded. There are human beings with practically unlimited power in this world, and they use the mechanisms they have to pressure the nations that today are their vassals.
Luckily, we have Pedro Sanchez in Spain, a humble, honest leader who knows who he owes his position to. That's why we love you.
Pedro, Mark, it's been a great show, a pleasure. This is always your home, and we'll see each other on the 5th at the Andorra Economic Forum, which will have already happened by the time we upload this, to be clear, but next year we'll promote it. You'll do the Madrid Economic Forum in 2026, he's already said it, and the Andorra Economic Forum 2026. Gentlemen, don't miss those events, especially. For me, the most important thing is the networking and the incredible atmosphere. You meet entrepreneurs and others with similar thoughts and values. So, Mark...
A pleasure, Jota.
Pleasure, gentlemen. See you next episode of LA Factoria.